Greatest Knits. We are two friends who knit together in Amsterdam, and we started this as a way to talk a little bit more about what we love and what we do. Thank you for joining us. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking a lot about what we're making at the moment. We're both very deep in several projects, so we thought we'd do a bit of an expose on those. We're going to be sharing some Instagram accounts that have been inspiring us lately, and we're going to reveal a favourite 3 later in the show, so we'll stay with us for that one. But to begin with, Julia, what are you working on?
This year started really very promising because actually towards the end of last year, I got in contact with Aimee from La Bien-Aimée in Paris, the hand dyer and yarn store. And we started to talk about possibly working together on a pattern, and that she would like to support the pattern with yarn. And we started to talk about yarn bases and colors, which was already, I mean, I could have gone on just doing that without ever turning it into a real pattern, but we settled on a yarn that she's which is fairly new, and about here it's called Helix, and it's a light fingering weight, so I think there's around 600 meters and even more on 100 grams. Ooh. And it's a mix of merino and Gotland, which is a originally Swedish sheep breed, which has really cute curly locks. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a really very cute sheep, and so it comes with a dark fiber naturally, and it's not a white base on which to dye. And I think for hand dyers, that's always a bit of a challenge, and it's also a challenge to dye on non-superwash yarn, because the superwash treatment makes the yarn or wool take the dye really intensively, and non-superwash is just, I have the feeling, less controllable. So this one's gonna be the one that I'm making first. It's pretty amazing.
It's very 80s. I'm feeling a good,
yeah,
right there. So.
Once I'm going to release the pattern, I'm going to release the source inspiration for it, and it's truly 80s. So far I can only say it comes from the singer Chaka Khan, who was the first concert that I ever went to, which was in the 80s.
Very cool, Julia. Chaka Khan is goddess.
Yeah, and so this is number 1. It's sea glass and anemone, and then I'm going to make another one. I'm going to make one for Aimee 2, and this is an amazing red, which is called Coquilo, which is poppy, the poppy flower. And this is fluoromorganite that we all love, obviously. So it's kind of like it's this neon pink, and on this base you can see how differently it dyes. And I love it the way that this goes together.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite combos of all time.
Oh,
that sort of bricky orangey red with a poppy pink.
Yes, I'm very, very curious how this would turn. And what are you working on? What are you wearing, first of all?
So this is finally, my Matilda sweater is finished, and it's got, as I promised, the little peekaboo hems at the hemline, at the cuffs, and at the collar. And I'm extremely pleased with myself. I'm very, very happy with how everything came out. I love the color work. I cropped the sweater as we discussed last time, and I changed you had a different collar, and I did some twisted ribbing for all of the cuffs and hems and things. And yeah, I'm very pleased with it. So thank you for writing a beautiful pattern and for naming it after me.
Well, thank you for knitting it. It looks amazing. I love it. Yeah.
And I wear it all the time. It's extremely warm. It's sometimes a little too warm because the Ulysses it's a very insulating fibre, and I don't leave the house at the moment very often, so it's a good one. But since finishing, I've been inspired to pick up and work on a whole lot of new things. So I'll just do a very quick run around. The thing that I'm working on most at the moment in the last couple of days is I'm swatching for some mittens. They're going to be colour work. Yeah, they're very cute, huh? It's the Ui Mittens. I know Birkenbeiler. I'm sorry, I know. And she goes by Mama's Teddy Bear on Instagram. Aina is originally from Kazakhstan, and she lives, I think, in Canada or the northern US. And these are based on an architectural motif in traditional Kazakh houses. And I think they're very sweet. So I'm making those for my husband because he always steals my mittens. So that's one. And then number two that I'm working on are some socks.
Oh yeah.
And this pattern is by our friend Emily.
Yeah.
And it's the oh yeah socks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
On purpose. Something like that.
So,
so I'm turning the heel at the moment. It's a different heel construction to what I'm used to. This is her Bootylicious heel, which I think she's taken from somewhere else. And that's all going well, except I managed to accidentally, I knit them two at a time, and I managed to completely drop one of them off the needles. I got it back on fine, but I've put it on backwards. So I've got I have my, it's fine. I'm telling myself if I hadn't been knitting them two at a time, if I was just doing them on DPNs or whatever, there'd be one that's like 2 rows longer than the other, and I wouldn't care. So I'm just not going to care about it. I'm just going to put it back in the bag. Number 3 is a cardigan in process. This is the Honey Bop cardigan from Poison Grrls knits.
oh yeah.
So I'm doing it's a nice V-neck cardigan. So I've done one side, I'm about to finish doing the other side, and then we'll join and knit from the underarms. And the yarn that I'm using for this one, I'm extremely proud of too, because it's my own hand spun. Superwash BFL from Southern Cross Fibres in the colourway Woodland. I don't know if he does that one much anymore. He's an Australian fibre and bat maker, dyer. And then the last one that I'm going to share at the moment is a big scrappy blanket. I'm making I'm making this for my very, very good friend Maya, who lives in New York, and her mum is sick and I can't be there to help. So I'm going to send her a big woolly hug. So I'm doing this with lots of scraps from my stash, and very generously Stephen has also given me a couple of scraps from his stash, and I'm holding that with good old Ulysses, the Gilead, for some extra chunky, squishy deliciousness. actually that leads me quite nicely into the Instagram post that has been inspiring me, or the Instagram person, which is Kindred Red, Amalia Sieber. And Amalia is a phenomenal knitter and a dyer and sewer and all-round incredible creative person. She's got 2 patterns in the forthcoming spring issue of Pom Pom, and I'm pretty obsessed with with both of them, but especially there's a little sort of housecoat style thing with which is got this sort of I don't know how she's doing it, but it's got floats going in 2 directions so that they form like a little cross stitch. I love it. And
yeah, I'm very curious why she did that. I always like how she uses color, the color combination she uses. They're very sweet, but they're also punchy, and it's called Sister Mountain, sistermountain.com, and it's by Claire Mountain. And she is she's a knitwear designer, and she has set up this website to support other knitwear designers, pattern designers. She has all kinds of, first of all, she has blogs, and I always find the blogs relevant and to the point and exactly what I'm struggling with or thinking about. And she has tools that she shares with you, like for grading, but also I always use her tool for calculating the yardage. And it's just really professionally set up and well maintained. And she had, for example, the other day, she had a workshop for designing your first sweater. And she always knows probably from own experience the problems that you might run into, and she kind of, like, in her blog, she addresses them one by one. Yeah, I really like her website. So this month's favorite 3.
Yes.
We wanted to share our top 3 podcasts of the moment. Would you like to start?
So I think I say this every single time, but it was really hard for me to narrow down to 3. I've been a podcast addict for a long time, since I was about 18, and so I don't know, 15 years or so. And I listen to podcasts when I commute, and also as a way to calm down to go to sleep, but different podcasts at different times. And the ones that I listen to actually hear the content, that's what I used as my criteria for this favorite 3. It's not my favorite 3 sleepy podcasts. So my first one is Call Your Girlfriend. And last time we talked about our favorite guiding words, and I referenced Anne Friedman and Aminatou Sow, who are the hosts of Call Your Girlfriend podcast with their Shine for Theory. Call Your Girlfriend, it's a long-running podcast that explores their friendship, and actually they've written a book called Big Friendship, which also goes into much deeper exploration of what it is to have a really important relationship that is bigger than just your BFF, or you don't want to classify it as a BFF because that makes a hierarchy, that sort of thing. But their relationship explored through that podcast has been fantastic. And they also talk about lots of different issues. They talk about politics, they talk about celebrity gossip, they talk about feminism, all sorts of topics that I find interesting. So Call Your Girlfriend has been on my rotation list for a long time. And then the other 2 podcasts are, neither of them are knitting related either, actually. The second one is Gastropod, And I think I've mentioned once or twice that I am a very food-focused person, and that my other great love in life is eating and cooking. And Gastropod is a exploration of food through the lens of science and history. And so Cynthia Graeber and I'm having a mind blank on the other person's name. Anyway, the Gastropod team pick food, talk about it for an hour, and do a really great job at researching it and coming at it from a very journalistic perspective. And it's just taught me a lot of great things. So I highly recommend that to anyone who enjoys eating, which should be most people. Food is great. And then my last podcast that I recommend is The Allusionist with an A. It's a podcast about language. So after I gave up on fashion design school, what I actually ended up studying and happily completing a degree in is linguistics. And so The Allusionist is kind of like a language nerd linguistics podcast. And again, I learn so much from that show. And it's a really exciting exploration of society and culture through the lens of language, and gives me a lot of pleasure. So those are my three. How about you guys? How about you, Julia?
I had the same problem because the favorite podcast tends to be the one that you're just listening to, right? Otherwise, you'd probably not follow it. And of course, I started with This American Life as well. That was my introduction to podcasts. And at the moment, my favorite podcast is called Everything's Fine, and it's made. I have to put on my glasses. It is putting on my glasses, she says. It's for women, a podcast for women above 40. And it's made by Kim France and Telly Abacassis. And I'm saying I'm not saying that it's a podcast that people under 40 couldn't listen to, but it's been absolutely eye-opening to me, and because it addresses a lot of issues. I mean, from all kinds of angles. Each time they talk with a different woman of that same age group about the challenges, the benefits, but also the difficulties of that age and how it's treated in society, and especially from a female perspective. And it's because each time they talk to a journalist, all of these participants, they're extremely knowledgeable, and they speak from a point of their own experience, and it's also really funny. So that's called Everything is Fine.
Yeah.
Another podcast I'm pretty sure you will like as well is called Where Should We Begin? And it's made by Esther Perel. And Esther Perel is a originally Belgian psychotherapist. She lives in New York now, and she's an extremely intelligent woman. And she manages. Before I saw an interview on TV, and that kind of drew my attention to the podcast, and I was kind of hesitant to listen to it because what it is, it's couples therapy sessions, each episode a different couple. And I was, I thought it's a bit voyeuristic. Why should I be listening in on other people's problems? And but because the interview of her was so good, and she was speaking with such an authority and empathy and just really sympathetic, I started listening to it. And of course, during these sessions, you notice that these people's problems are very, that you see yourself in these other people's problems, and I kind of like address things that you've maybe also experienced in your own relationship. And it's just the way that she does it is very it's just very kind, and she dares to address all kinds of subjects. There's cross-cultural couples, there's couples with like homosexual couples, they all have different, you know, she really looks at society as it is, and she doesn't have like this tunnel vision of the typical couples that you would see on TV. And I really appreciate that. And the third podcast that I really like is called Maintenance Phase. And it's made by Michael Hobbs and Aubrey Gordon. And Aubrey Gordon, I knew her from Your Fat Friend. That's another Instagram account that I follow. She's recently published a book also, I think it's called What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat. In this podcast, they investigate, or they reveal all these prejudices and false fake information behind weight loss, wellness ideas, diets, TV shows that deal with dieting. And because I was so I think her Instagram account is really amazing, and also very funny. This podcast is also really funny. They're both they're very fast talkers, and they definitely find the right words for everything. And yeah, so it's also really very entertaining. And yeah, that's the third podcast that I've been listening to.
Love it. Fantastic. Well, I've got a lot to download and listen to now to keep me company on my journey with my many projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I will listen to yours. So I've got a nice library now lined up for me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And, please rate and subscribe and leave your comments below, especially if you have podcasts that you recommend that we listen to. And we'll see you next month. Bye. Bye.